The follow- The following women are forbidden to eat truma. One who says, I am defiled to you, or one about whom witnesses testify that she is defiled, and one who says, I will not drink, or one whose husband does not want to give her to drink, or one whose husband cohabitated with her on the way. How must he deal with her? He takes her to the court of that place, and they designate 2 learned men to accompany them, lest he cohabitate with her on the way. Rabbi Yehuda says her husband can be trusted regarding her. They bring her up on the high court in Jerusalem, where they still instill fear in her in the manner in which they instill fear in witnesses to capital cases. They say to her, my daughter, wine causes much impropriety, levity causes much, childness causes much, and bad neighbors cause much. Do for the sake of his great name, which is written in holiness, so that it not be erased from in the water. And they relate to her incidences which she nor her father's family deserved to hear. If she said, I am defiled, she writes a recipe for her marriage contract, a receipt, recipe. If she said, I am defiled, she writes a receipt for her marriage contract and is divorced. And if she said, I am pure, they take her up to the eastern gate, which was opposite the Nicanor gate, where they give the women suspected of adultery the bitter waters to drink. Purify the women who have given birth, and purify those who have recovered from tzras. A Kohen takes hold of her garments, and if they tore, they tore, and if they became tattered, they became tattered, until he uncovers her bosom, and he undoes her hair. Rabbi Yehuda says, if her bosom was comely, he did not uncover it, and if her hair was comely, he did not loosen it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. I just realized, like today, when you're reading the translation, the term shoveres kasubasa in the first sentence of Mishna Hey, I'm thinking in terms of lishbor is to break, but to break, lishbor is to break something. So I think she breaks it because okay, so fine. So maybe that means you have to tear it up or whatever. She relinquishes her claim. But what you translated over there was that she writes a receipt. A receipt is a shovar. So shoveres kasubasa means that she writes out a receipt to say she's received her kasuba, and then she can no longer claim. So her husband's got it, and she can no longer claim a kasuba from him. So that's a little subtlety over there, and I never realized that in the etymology before. Okay. Mishnah Vav. I saw Miss Casa Bilvanim. I say if the woman was previously dressed in her fine white clothes, then they put black clothes on her to make her less attractive. If she had golden jewelry and necklaces, nizamim v'tabaos and rings, mavirim mimena, they take her jewelry off her. In order to make her what's the word?
Disgrace, right?
Disgracer. Maybe chevel mitzri, the kosher, and then they would bring an Egyptian rope and tie it on her chest above her breasts to make sure that her clothes didn't fall down completely. Because remember, the Kohen has already torn her clothing. Okay. Now, why is it an Egyptian chevel? The commentary points out that this is an allusion to Maseh Mitzrayim. This is when the Torah says, "Don't do like the Egyptians did," and she went and she's accused at least of doing like the Egyptians did. And everyone who wanted to see comes to see in public. It's a whole public spectacle. This ceremony of the Sotah in the Beis Mikdash, except her personal slaves and slave girls should not come. Why? Because if she sees them there, then it might make her more recalcitrant, because she feels like she's supposed to be the mistress, and it would be too much of a disgrace for her to confess. Right? Mm-hmm. Ultimately, everyone would prefer if she just confesses and they don't have to go through this whole ceremony. And we worry that having her slaves present will make her more recalcitrant.
Excuse me 1 second. You said they won't have to go through this whole ceremony, but she still has to drink the water, even if she confesses.
Mm-mm.
No?
That's the whole point. The whole point is if she confesses, then there's no need to go through it further. She loses her kasuba, he divorces her, and that's the end of the story.
And what would happen if she drank the water? We know what would happen to her in terms of her body. What happens to her now? She confessed, and so she's not going to have to go through that.
Nothing. If she confesses, nothing happens to her. She hasn't drunk any water.
Wow.
Right, and that's the whole point. They want to. First of all, they don't want to have to erase Hashem's name.
Right.
Second of all, they don't want her to die.
Okay. All right. But he can never remarry her again.
No, definitely not. She asur laval, asur lavoil. She's not allowed to marry him. Not allowed to marry the adulterer.
Okay.
Okay. Right. V'chol hanashim mutaros lirosa. Well, and it says all women are permitted to see her. In fact, this is a bit of an understatement. The Kadi points out that they should go and see her.
Right.
Because shenema b'nibasru kol hanashim v'lo te'asena kezimas chena. That the women should see it and they should take it to heart, her example, and not get it into their heads to do anything like she did. Okay, so now b'midav she'adam moded ba modedin lo. This is such a big principle in life, is that Hashem's signature in the world is midah keneged midah. Almost everything you want to see Maaseh Hashem, it's midah keneged midah. And I think it's sort of baked into our psyche, which is why it's like so geschmack when you have a situation like Haman getting hung on his own gallows. That's like the irony is just like so beautiful. When you see somebody getting the hoist on their own petard or whatever the expression is. So he kishta es atma la'avera hamakom nivlas. So she dressed herself up, to make herself attractive for the avera, and now she is being disgraced. Okay. He gilta is atma lavera hamakom gila aleha. She revealed herself for the sake of avera, and now Hashem has revealed her in front of everyone in the mikdash. V'yarech ischila ba'avera techila v'achakach habetin. So she starts with her thigh, and then in terms of the avera, and then comes her stomach, her womb. And that's why it says the pasuk tells us that her thigh will swell, and then her stomach will the thigh will collapse and the stomach will swell. Right. So those are the particular organs that are named. And the rest of her body did not escape free either. But those are the ones that are particularly mentioned in the curse that the Kohen is trying to scare her with, your thigh and your stomach and kacha. So now the Mishnah takes a little digression once we're talking about midah keneged midah to talk about other examples of midah keneged midah that we know of. Shimshon halach achar einav. He went after his eyes. Levichach nikru plishtim es einav. And that's why the plishtim put out his eyes, because he was always shenemar vayochazuhu plishtim v'ayinakru es einav. The plishtim seized him and put out his eyes.
This is exactly what you just talked about Haman.
Midah keneged midah. He was chasing after plishti women that were too pretty, because he liked the prettiness, and this is what brought him short. Avshalom nisga'a basaro. Right here, speaking of Nazir, right? We've just been learning about Nazir. Avshalom was also a Nazir. He was a Nazir Olam. And he used to shave his hair once a year to lighten his load, and it was an enormous weight, and he was extremely proud of his Nazir hair. Okay, lefichach nitzla bisaro, and therefore he was hung by his hair, as the story goes, that he was riding away from David's generals, and he got tangled in the tree with by his hair. Lefi sheba al eser pilag she'aviv, and since he had relations with 10 of his father's concubines, lefichach nitnu bo eser longios, and therefore he was speared 10 times. Shneimar vayasovu asara anashim nosei klei Yoav. So they went around him. There were 10 of Yoav's armor bearers went around him, spearing him. And since he deceived 3 people, or three hearts, he deceived 3 hearts. Leiv Aviv, Leiv Beis Din, Leiv Yisrael. Right, he deceived his father. He deceived the Beis Din, and right. How did he deceive each of them? The Kata goes into it that right. He said he deceived his father when he said, "I'm going to he says, "I'm going to go and pay for my neder which I swore to Hashem in Hebron," but instead he sent spies to all of Israel to say, when you hear the shofar, then you must say the King Absalom is in Hebron. And Lev Beis Din, what did he do? He David Melech gave him an authority to gather two other people to make a Beis Din. So what did he do? He used the same petek to keep gathering more and more people until two more until he had 200 Rosh Beis Din. So that deception was another deception. And by Ganav Absalom slave Anshe Israel, he deceived Bnei Israel when he when people came to bow to him, and he kissed him. I'm actually not following the context of the pasuk. Does the art scroll explain what was the deception that he pulled on Israel?
On Israel, I don't see right off. He deceived the whole. He stole the hearts of Israel and convinced them that he was the only one truly concerned for their welfare, and that they should therefore take him as their king.
Okay.
What I have.
All right, that's good enough. And therefore he had 3 darts. The Kahati translation says darts.
Right.
That you got as well?
Right.
And he had, so this is Yoav. I think this was Yoav. Yes, Yoav who took these things and pierced Absalom's heart with them.
The Radak says that darts are like lances, except they're much thinner.
So. Okay. So thank you. All right. So that's more mida keneged mida, and there's another Mishna of mida keneged mida letovah, which we'll learn tomorrow.
I have a question. I don't think that you can answer this, not because you don't know, but I think it's, I don't know, seen anywhere. There was incidences, and I can't remember, the person who was caught collecting wood on Shabbos.
Yes.
Right? With one person. I don't think there was anyone else after that was caught doing that. Am I correct?
There's only one that's mentioned in the Chumash.
I mentioned, and there's someone else did something else. Now, there was a mention, maybe it was.
You're talking about the Makalel?
No.
The one who cursed Hashem?
Right, that's one. And there was another thing about 7. So I'm trying to say what I'm trying to say. Oh, it says something about they only killed one person was given a death sentence, and they actually killed by one person, right? So what happened here with the Sotah? Was it only like 1 time or 5 times or 10? Did they mention anywhere in the Torah that
that there was a Sotah?
That there was a real Sotah that this happened to?
I don't think it's mentioned anywhere how many Sotahs there were in the Psukim, but it appears that it did happen. It's not one of, like, I think there are three mitzvahs, three cases that the Torah gives that never were. There's the Ben Sorer Moreh, and the Ir Hamidachas, and Tzaras Batim, Tzaras on houses. Tzaras on people, definitely there was, but Tzaras on Batim, I don't think there is one case in the Gemara says that there was never such a.
That's the case.
Yes.
I just wonder if there was what happened with the Sotah. I mean, anyone seeing this process take place got to think twice, you know.
So Sotah is not one of those three.
Right. Right. That's interesting. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So Nazir Vav Dalid.
Odal. A Nazir who drank wine all day is liable to only one set of lashes. They said to him, don't drink, and he drank. He's liable for each one. If he shaved his head all day, he is liable to only one set of lashes. If they said to him, don't shave, and he shaved, he is liable for each one. If he contaminated himself with the tumor of the dead all day, he is liable to only one set of lashes. If they said to him, don't contaminate yourself, and he did contaminate himself, he's liable for each one. Three matters are forbidden to a Nazir: tumor, head shaving, and products of the grapevine. There is an aspect of greater stringency to tumor and head shaving than to products of the grapevine, in that tumor and head shaving cause forfeiture, whereas the products of the grapevine do not cause forfeiture. There is an aspect of greater stringency to products of the grapevine than to tumor and to head shaving, and that there are no exceptions to the prohibition of the products of the grapevine, whereas there are exceptions to the prohibitions of tumor and head shaving. Where shaving is an obligation and where there is an abandoned corpse, and there is an aspect of greater stringency to tumor than to head shaving, and that tumor causes forfeiture of all the days previously observed, and one is obligated because of it being a sacrifice, obligated because of it to bring a sacrifice, whereas head shaving causes forfeiture of only 30 days, and one is not obligated because of it to bring a sacrifice. What is the procedure for head shaving and tumor? He would be sprinkled on the 3rd and the 7th days, shave his head on the 7th, and bring his sacrifices on the 8th. However, if he shaves on the 8th, he brings his sacrifices on that same day. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva. Reb Tarfon said to him, what is the difference between this one and a Metzorah? He said to him, this one's purification is dependent on his days, while a Metzorah's purification depends on his shaving, and he cannot bring a sacrifice unless the sun has set on him. Okay.
Nadarim Vafes.
Okay. One who makes a net of prohibiting dates is permitted date honey. If he makes a net of prohibiting winter grapes, he is permitted vinegar of winter grapes. Rabbi Huda ben Basara says, whenever the derivative carries the name of its source and he makes a net of prohibiting the source, he is forbidden the derivative as well. The comment, however, permitted. One who makes a net of prohibiting wine is permitted apple wine. If he prohibited oil, he permitted sesame oil. If honey, he is permitted date honey. If vinegar, he is permitted vinegar of winter grapes. If leek, he is permitted leeks with a head. If vegetables, he is permitted wild vegetables because it is an appellative. If one made a net of prohibiting cabbage, he is forbidden asparagus. Asparagus, he is permitted cabbage. If grits, he is forbidden grits pottage. Reb Yossi, however, permits it. If grit pottage, he is permitted grits. If grits pottage, he is also forbidden garlic. Reb Yossi, however, permits it. If garlic, he is permitted grit pottage. If lentils, he is forbidden waste of lentils. And Reb Yossi, however, permits it. If waste of lentils is permitted lentils, if he says what wheat grains with respect to my tasting them, he has forbidden them whether in the form of flour or bread. Grits with respect to my tasting them, he is forbidden whether raw or cooked. If Yehuda says, if he says kornam, grits, or wheat grain, with respect to my tasting, he's permitted to chew them raw.
Thomas.
We have base Zion. Two men who betrothed two sisters, and neither one knows which one he has betrothed. Each one of them gives two divorces. If they died and they each left a brother who each forms chalitza with both. If one If one left one brother and the other left two brothers, the single brother performs chalitza with both, and of the two, one performs chalitza and the other men perform yibum. However, if they went ahead and married them, we do not force them to divorce. If each left two brothers, a brother of one performs chalitza with one of the sisters, and the brother of the other performs chalitza with the other sisters, then the two remaining brothers may each perform the yibum with the widow who received chalitza from the other's brother. If both went ahead and performed chalitza, the other two may not perform yibum, but one must perform chalitza and the other may perform yibum. However, if they went ahead and married them, we do not force them to divorce. The commandment is for the elders to perform yibum, but if the younger participated him, he gains it. One who was suspected in connection with a slave woman and she was then freed, or in connection with a non-Jewish woman and then converted, may not marry her. But if he did marry her, we do not force him to divorce her. One who is suspected in connection with another man's wife and they compelled him to divorce her, even if he married her, he must divorce her. And one who brings a bill of divorce from overseas and says, it was written before me and signed before me, may not marry the wife. If he declares he died, I killed him, we killed him, he may not marry the wife. Rabbi Yehuda says, if he declares I killed him, his wife may not marry. We killed him, his wife may marry. Okay. Test. How is it like an undomesticated animal? Its blood must be covered like the blood of an undomesticated animal, and it may be slaughtered on a festival day. But if you slaughtered it, its blood is not covered. Its chaylev conveys carrying uncleanliness like an undomesticated animal, and its uncleanliness is in doubt, and one may not redeem it with a firstborn donkey. How is it like cattle? Its chaylev is forbidden like the chaylev of cattle, and one is not liable to carriage for it. And it may not be brought with Ma'aser Sheni money to be eaten in Yerushalayim, and it is subject to the shoulder, the two cheeks, and the moah. If Eliezer exempts, for the burden of proof lies in the claimant. How is it neither like a undomesticated animal, like cattle? It is forbidden on account of kalayim, with both an undomesticated animal and with cattle. If one assigns to his sons his undomesticated animal and his cattle, he has not assigned to him his koi. If he said, I am a Nazarite, and this be an undomesticated animal and cattle, he is a Nazarite. In all of the ways, it is like an undomesticated animal and cattle and requires slaughtering like this and like that, conveys uncleanliness, carry uncleanliness and a limb of a living being like this and like that. How is it how is he neither like an undomesticated, which is a koi, right? One assigns to his son and his undomesticated animals and his cattle, he has not assigned to him his koi. But we just said above that.
Because okay, so okay, if he did either one of them, if he said I'm giving all of my behemoths to my son, so then whoever the other claimants might be, it might be his other children. Or,
okay.
Right. Then they might say, hold on, that's the koi is not in the definition of your behemoths. And okay. Similarly, if he gave all his chayas, if he gave all his chayas and behemoths, then the koi, then you could come into an argument about as to whether it's definitely included in one of the two, because I think it was a Rabbi Yossi thing that when he said no, it's a Bria Chadash. Or was that talking about the androgynous? No, I think it's just a suffix. It's not a Bria Chadash. The Bria Chadash, I think Rabbi Yossi was only talking about the androgynous, not about the point. And we'll have that discussion about the androgynous pretty soon.
Okay, got it. Okay. Zion. If one sanctifies the water with one hand and performs a different activity with the other hand, if it is for himself, it is disqualified. But if it's for someone else, it is valid. If someone sanctifies for himself and for someone else, he is disqualified, but the water of the other person is valid. If someone sanctifies water for two people at once, both are valid. Sanctify for me, and then I will sanctify for you. The first one is valid. Fill for me, and then I will fill for you. The last one is valid. Sanctify for me, and then I will fill for you. Both are valid. fill for me, and then I will sanctify for you. Both are disqualified.
Yeah, the reason being over here that if you're getting involved in something else after you've started filling the water for, we're trying to get water for Paraduma water. It's got to come from the Mayan, and there's not allowed to be interrupted by any melacha in between drawing the water and putting the ashes into the water. So if he now fills up for himself and then fills up for somebody else, then the filling up for somebody else is an interruption, and therefore the first water is pasul.
So right.
So this is basically what we're discussing in all these Mishnahs here.
If someone fills a barrel and a barrel for katos water, he first fills his barrel and then ties it to the carrying pole, and he subsequently fills a barrel for katos water. If he filled the barrel of katos water first and afterward filled his barrel, he is disqualified. He puts his barrel behind him and the barrel for katos water in front of him. But if he put the barrel for katos behind him, it is disqualified. If they were both for katos water, he places one in front of him and one in back of him. This is valid since it is impossible.
Yeah, there's no other way to do it. You have to, if you're going to carry it, you're going to carry it. So once that's the derech of carrying it, and we've got one behind and one in front, there's no, what else did you expect him to do? It's not called an interruption. Okay.
Zavachim, Zion Gimel. And all of them do not contaminate with tumah via the throat, but one is subject to the laws of Me'ilah on their account, except for the bird katos, which was made below in the manner of katos, offering for the designation of katos. If a bird ola was made below in the manner of the katos offering for the designation of katos, Eliezer says one is subject to Me'ilah on its account, but Rabbi Yeshua says one is not subject to Me'ilah on its account. From Eliezer, if in a katos offering, which is not subject to Me'ilah when it has been offered for its own designation, it's nevertheless subject to Me'ilah when it is changed, when it's changed its designation. Then an Ola offering, which is subject to Me'ilah when it is offered for its own designation, should surely be subject to Me'ilah when it changed its designation. Said Rabbi Yeshua to him, not so. If this can be said of the katos offering whose designation one changed to an Ola, it is because he has changed his designation to something which is subject to Me'ilah. Can the same be said of an Ola offering whose designation one changed to a katos, in which case he has changed his designation to something which is not subject to Me'ilah? Said Reb Eliezer, that most holy offerings which are slaughtered in the southern part of the courtyard and which he slaughtered for the lesser holiness designation serve as proof, in that he has changed his designation to something not subject to Me'ilah, and yet they are subject to Me'ilah. So too, you should not wonder at an Ola offering, that even when one has changed his designation to something not subject to Me'ilah, it is nevertheless remained subject to Me'ilah. Said Rabbi Yeshua to him, not so. If this can be said of most Ola offerings, then which one slaughtered in the southern part of the courtyard, and which he slaughtered for lesser holiness designation, it is because he changed his designation to something which is forbidden parts and permissible parts. Can you say the same for an Ola offering whose designation when changed to something which is entirely permissible? Okay. I think that's it, right?
No, one more.
One more. If he performed Malika with the left hand or at night, or he slaughtered the non-sacred bird inside the courtyard or offerings outside it, these do not contaminate with tumah via the throat. If he performed Malika with a knife, or if he performed Malika on a non-sacred bird inside, or on offerings outside, or on turtle doves whose time has not arrived, or young pigeons whose time has passed, or on a bird whose wing has atrophied, or whose eye was blinded, or whose foot was cut off, they contaminate with tumah via the throat. This is the rule. Anything.
In other words, if they contaminate with tumah via the throat, what we're saying is that it's an avela. An avela, right? Which means it's the shchita was pasul. It died without shchita.
This is the rule. Anything whose disqualification, as in the holy, does not contaminate with tumah via the throat, but if its disqualification is not in the holy and contaminates with tumah via the throat, all disqualified persons who perform Malika, their Malika is not valid, but the birds do not contaminate with tumah via the throat.
Okay. All right, that's it.
Okay, good. Okay. So tomorrow you're going to be pre, right?
Tomorrow.